Mr. Badri, what is your vision of the current international political and economic situation? What problems does our civilization face today, and how do you find ways to solve them?
What is the current international political and economic situation? As we have discussed above as briefly as possible, we want to use this approach to assess what is happening in the world today and what contradictions we are dealing with. I have even mentioned this issue, that two major powers are against each other in the world today, one is progressive and the other is regressive. This does not mean that a progressive force fighting for global market freedom and economic integration, its policies are without errors, of course, not. Both strengths have their pros and cons, both the economic class in the West and the Eastern bureaucratic coalition, a combination of bureaucrats we have in the form of Russia, China, and so on, all of them, makes use of each other's mistakes. The negative part of both is nourished by each other's mistakes, and it does not contribute to world peace, it does not contribute to the free development of the world and vice versa, it prevents everything from moving the earth on the rails of future development. The West's misguided, violent policies are the politics of its negative wing. I will say one thing, that what we are talking about today, no one in the world talks about, because they either do not know it or rather, they have no theory, no ideological basis. What is happening globally today, it is not ideologically deciphered, there is no theory, and did not exist either. What already exists today, and this is our theory, is solidarity. Now we cannot fully describe and decipher what is being said in a small dose of an interview. I just want to say that in both parts, both on the side of the international capital and on the side of the bureaucratic coalition, there are both positive and negative parts. In contrast to these negative parts, the positive parts need to work together. What is needed? Today, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, international markets have opened up, but not all of them. The opening of these markets has taken advantage of the ugliness of a representative democracy called bureaucracy and has made a lot of money and accumulated a lot of influence over the last 20 years that slowed down globalization, and in the face of stunted globalization, we are facing a clash of these two superpowers today. When a decisive duel will take place between them, no one knows, so if these two forces, the so-called positive side of the two forces, did not cooperate with each other, and the negative parts of these two forces overcame, there could be a big split and civilization could go backward and go back to the Stone Age. How do we get back to the Stone Age? By war or by establishing an international dictatorship? There are two ways of world development. What is the negative effect of the political and economic class of the West? They are fighting for an international dictatorship. They do not say that, of course, they do not have an official ideology to advertise their own practical goals and objectives. No one will support them, they will not decipher themselves. As for the East flank, it's Russia, China, and then the systems, it's horrible, it's a post-communist system, a semi-feudal one full of swamps, and so on. The bureaucratic coalition fights with ostensibly false patriotic ideas that without it the power that threatens us from the West will overthrow us, it will destroy nationality, it will establish various immoralities, and so on and so forth. These two negative parts inside the opposing global hulls are in fact allied with each other internally. The key is for both sides to overcome the regressive force of the progressive forces that say in the West that we do not want the annihilation of the Russian nation or the Chinese, we really want, and not just stenciled, a new phase of democracy that requires time, that requires globalization. We want to protect the principles of a free market economy, we do not want to regulate these markets, closed markets. Why should there be locked internet in Iran, China, and so on? Why should human freedom be restricted there? Because someone in the West, the regressive wing of Western civilization, poses a threat to them. If the progressive wing wins on both sides, they must negotiate to create a system that guarantees the free development of the world, ensuring the natural existence and development of a planetary civilization. What we see today is these two negative forces within these two forces, their relationship has reached a level that at any moment can be overcome by the negative side, and the negative forces of both sides collide with each other. In this case, there will be two solutions, either one has to give up or the other. Whoever gives up on this will lead to a sharp decline in both democracy and freedom, and there will be no further talk of the future development of any democracy. Here we will talk about how one party should turn a free society into an concentration camp, how to gain maximum control over each individual, and so on. This applies to both sides. There is no freedom in China today, right? China is not a market economy in the classical sense. There is a market economy to some degree controlled by political power. Consequently, something similar could happen in the West. If the negative forces of the West win, in this case the whole world will become a global China as a whole. Therefore, the solution is the only one. Today, the global confrontation is so intense that the positive forces of the two opposing forces must be organized, and a system must be created through negotiations that ensures both the global freedom of markets and the transition from an existing democracy to a new, direct democracy. Many will ask the question, why should the Eastern Bloc agree to such a thing? Firstly, because the positive part of the Eastern Bloc must agree to this, and in return, the positive part of the Western Bloc must guarantee and incorporate it into the new international system that will monitor the path to the free and natural development of the world. We have given short articles about mutual guarantees on our site, and I tried to convey them in more detail. This is my answer to what the solution is to this issue, though it is very general. I speak at the level of principles, but to limit myself to this at this point, we will then discuss the rest of each program point from the ideological foundations of our union.